Good day, everybody. This is Eichel Bowles. Just taking a look at some of the stuff Kent Hovind produces for reference and research purposes. Today he's going on about honoring thy father and thy mother. I imagine that is a not very subtle dig at his son Eric. Of course, the relationship between Kent and his children is pretty broken. He's also talking about not murdering, which is pretty obvious. But he distinguished between that and killing, and he seems to think the government should do a fair bit of killing, mainly of people he doesn't properly approve of. And then no adultery, and that seems rather hypocritical coming from a man who's been married 4 times. But anyway, we start where he's going on about killing, and this probably upsets some people in the audience because he sounds a bit manic, and some couple of girls are talking in the background, so he drags them up the front to make an example of them. But I think they probably were a bit perturbed by the way he was raving on. Let's listen for ourselves.
Be put to death, shall be put to death, put to death, put to death. It's all through the Bible. Put to death, put to death, put to death. Yes, all through the Bible. Let's see, 5 times in Genesis, 67 times in Exodus. It uses that phrase, put them to death. So God's not against murder. God's against murder, not against killing.
Well, yes, I guess, yes, he's definitely not against killing. He does a fair bit of it in the Old Testament, women, children, men, babies even, and I presume unborn babies too. Sort of sets a bit of a tone there.
Distinguish the difference here, okay? 292 times in the first 5 books of the Bible. God, you girls in the back row, stop talking. Move them up here, please. All you parents, move them up here. They're back there talking instead of listening. Right now, please. Faster than that. Come on.
Can you blame them? Can you blame them for not listening to this drivel? Anyway, he gets a bit angry, you can tell. He's suppressing it quite well. Sometimes he really goes off, but suppressing it reasonably well here. And then he drags them up and starts on his talk about making babies.
Move up here. In 1 John, he said, if you hate your brother, that's the same as murder. Hating him. Whoso hateth his brother is a murderer. 1 John 3:15. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Where's this one come in? Well, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. The power to take away someone's life is something society should take very seriously.
I think we'll skip ahead there to the bit about, he starts on about the making of the babies. Let's see what he has to say here.
So there are hundreds of laws and standards governing marriage, fornication, adultery, child support, aren't there? How many battles are there in the court over this issue? See, God gave the command to make babies, and he gave the desire. And you can look at any species of any animal, it's a pretty strong desire. Watch the bucks out here this month, rutting, banging heads.
It's probably something that the girls in the audience don't really want to do. And now you've dragged them up the front and you're going on about this, Kent.
Trying to be the one that gets the right to make the babies. They'll kill each other over it, don't they? Almost all the animals, they fight to the death. It's a powerful urge. God made it, but you got to put some restrictions on it, okay? The explosion of gunpowder is powerful, but you got to put some restrictions. I want to put a steel barrel around. I want the bullet to go this way, not just every way. God put restrictions on adultery, fornication, marriage, and there ought to be these restrictions, okay? Thou shalt not commit adultery, the command we just read in Exodus. And then in Leviticus, a couple of books later, a man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death.
Kent is probably quite an expert on this sort of thing, having been married 4 times, but anyway.
Well, in the story when Jesus read in John chapter 8, why didn't they bring the man? Huh? He's part of their Masonic lodge in that count. Yeah, okay.
What? What Masonic lodge? In the Bible? Come on, Kent.
Neither shalt thou commit adultery, repeated in Deuteronomy. Whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. Something changes in somebody when they become an adulterer. They have to hide and run from God. It's a powerful urge, and you better learn to control it, okay? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Jesus said, you heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery, but I say unto you, whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart.
So why would God make a woman attractive in some way in order that the man want to reproduce? But then if you do that and look at someone, then you've committed this sin. This is some God.
See, God made the trigger is the looking at the woman starts the process, okay? Now, for giraffes, when they taste her pee, that starts turning them on.
What? And now, that might be right, but really, is this appropriate for Kent to be talking about in front of a young audience and girls that he has dragged to the front, already bored? Really?
Oh, I'm glad we're not giraffes, okay?
Yeah, yes, that's what he says.
All different animals have all kinds of different triggers that turn them on, okay? Just the look, the beautiful shape of a woman is enticing.
Yes, well, remember Hovind's some story he regularly tells that his daddy, the guy that's the only survivor of his platoon and other sort of stuff like that, his daddy had said, girls, if you're in business, unless you're in business, don't advertise. It's once again sort of like blaming the woman. I think it's terrible.
Jesus said, don't look at another woman and lust after her because you've committed adultery already in your heart. That's a tough one to overcome. He said, if you put away your wife except for the cause of fornication, you cause her to commit adultery. I've never divorced anybody, never left anybody.
Well, okay. So, yes, Joe, after you were responsible for sending her to prison, she's the one that divorced you. That's right. What about Mary? You annulled the marriage, which is on a par with divorce. She didn't annul the marriage, Kent. You annulled the marriage. And what about Cindy? Oh, yes, you annulled the marriage, Kent. Come on, splitting hairs here.
Had a couple leave me. I know.
Yes, there's I think 3 actually, not a couple. 3 have left you, but of course you're never wrong. They're always wrong.
I'd never do that. I make a promise. I'm going to keep it. Okay.
Oh yes, promise to cherish and and you hold a ring up in the front. When you held that ring up, that reminded me of when Cindy left you, and then of course you drove her out actually, and then you eventually a few weeks later, in a way, not very long, you marry Sandra, and you hold the ring up in front of the video, and you say, "Cindy, you blew it. What a horrible man you are."
Whosoever shall commit. Jesus talked a lot about adultery, adultery, adultery. These red words are all Jesus' words, Jesus talked a lot about adultery. You know the commandments, don't commit adultery. So in John chapter 3, the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery to see what he would say. This woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Oh, but the man didn't come. I see.
Jesus said that the woman was caught in adultery in the very act, but the man didn't come. I mean, Hovind is just being dirty here. It's not the first time. And I don't think it's appropriate at a place that is supposed to be a Christian camp and with children and girls in the audience. Really quite bad. Okay, we will leave it there for today. I hope you've enjoyed and you see the true Kent